Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the Policy Committee regularly scheduled meeting for February 9th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. Present are Director Costa and Director Sheets. Director Sheets standing in this evening for Director Sailors, who is on the committee as well. With that, I'd like to open the conversation to the public for any opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within the committee scope, including items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
We do not have any speakers in the audience. And Art, if you could unmute our virtual audience.
Hello, attendees. You now have the ability to present anything to the board at this time. We have no response.
It's a shocker. With that, I'd go ahead and entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda for the May 12th, 2022 meeting that we had with staff.
Mr. Chair, make a motion.
Yeah, I've got a motion. Director Sheets.
Second.
And luckily we got a second for that particular motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Sheets.
Aye.
Costa.
Aye.
And Gould.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to our only action item this evening, and that's the election of officers to serve in the Policy Committee for this rotation, year 2023. I'll entertain a motion for the chair of the Policy Committee.
I'll make a motion to nominate Director Costa to be chair. How was that?
Nice. Very well played. I like how that went, and I will second that motion. So,
fantastic.
But before we call the roll, Director Costa, is that something that you're willing to do?
Yes, I am.
Okay, excellent. Very good. And at this point, we'll also, I guess I'll call the roll on that motion. So Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Sheets.
Aye.
Costa.
Aye.
And Gould.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Outstanding. We'll move on to the Vice Chair of the Policy Committee. I'll entertain a motion.
Is it going to be Director Sailors? I'll make a motion to nominate Director Sales as the co-chair.
Second.
And we've got a first and a second on Director Sailors providing services as Vice Chair of the Policy Committee. Wonderful decisions, Madam Clerk. And I will then also, let's call the roll.
Director Sheets.
Aye.
Costa.
Aye.
And Gould.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Wonderful. That'll be a wonderful group. And I look forward to serving alongside them as I can. Let's now move on to our one and only presentation item this evening. That's password policy with Mr. Rosenberry as our information technology director. I see him there in his fancy shirt. Mr. Rosenberry, go ahead, please.
Good evening, directors and chief. We brought this password policy to the policy committee last January, and we are in the process of finally being able to roll it out because we had some things in the policy that we needed to take care of on our side with multi-factor authentication. In addition, we had to make some updates. They're highlighted in yellow under password requirements. Every year, we're probably going to be bringing this policy back just to update the new requirements we need to meet for NIST and CISA standards. So this year we did 12 characters and using one uppercase, one lowercase, one number, and or a special character. And we put some requirements where you can't use the word Metro and you can't use a previous password by increments of password 1 or password 2, etc. That's basically all we did in this password policy. Any questions? Pretty simple.
Is that do we have any questions from directors?
What's your password? I'm kidding.
Watch it. Mr. Roseberry, I have a couple of questions for you relative to this particular. Are you going to go all the way through the policy? It's quite a lengthy policy. Have you just basically completed your presentation of it? Like This is
Yeah.
what we did, and
I
now
can
we're
go over
done.
I can go over the full policy. We did bring it last year. So it was just some revisions that we did for the updates and highlights.
Yeah, I don't know that my colleagues are interested in a complete review of this. A couple of questions, if you don't mind, that I have on this, having sat through the presentation in January. A couple of things. Can you describe for me what 3 generations means? To the layman, a generation is typically defined as 10 years. Are you suggesting we have to wait 3 10-year processes in order to be able to update our password?
No, not at all.
So what does that mean in the IT world?
For a generation, as far as just your previous passwords?
So 3 different passwords, each password being a generation.
Yes, correct.
Okay, very good. All right. So that helps clarify what that means, because I couldn't find anywhere in the policy when you say 3 generations, I'm thinking 30 years. And that seemed like an awful long time before I could use that again. So I appreciate that piece of it. The second question I have is, what are we doing to provide some kind of summary training for new employee onboarding when it comes to passwords? Because I don't know that most of our new employees are going to want to sit through a policy that's as arduous as this one. And also, what are we providing for people when they have a password challenge, where they can go and instead of reading through the entire thing, they can watch some kind of educational tool or review some kind of educational tool that's a little bit of an easier read or process, because this is purely stuck in the IT world with how long it is and how many IT words they use throughout the document. What are we doing in that regard?
Well, at this point, I know that HR developed an employee handbook several years ago. I don't know if they actually rolled that out. This would be something that would be great to be put in there that explains the password requirements. We do have it on our bulletin application, our bulletin app that we have.
Sure.
They're not going to go through and start reading a bunch of bulletins when they get hired. So
yeah.
I can definitely work with HR and see what we can come up with.
I would think that when we onboard new employees, or we have to revisit this as a current employee, that's something that's a little bit shorter with a little bit less of the techie talk would be very helpful to keep compliance, because throughout the document, there's a lot of conversation about compliance or the lack thereof. And
Yes.
We want to make sure that our men and women understand, how important the password protection piece is, but we have to, I think, do it in a way where they're going to be able to retain that information, because frankly, at the end of it, I needed to take some ibuprofen and lay down for a while. So good work. And I would love to see you work with HR to operationalize this document or policy, as it were, so that we have a little bit maybe stronger compliance, because they actually understand all of it. So I appreciate all the hard work that your staff have done and kept it updated. And you mentioned the fact that we'll probably see this on an annual basis.
Yes.
I would propose to the policy committee that in fact be the timeline. And so where it says this is going to be in place, I think at the top of it, of the top of the policy, let me just move to it. But I think it says the review date is tonight, but I'm wondering if what we want to do is we want to put in there, a review date that is a year or 6 months from now, so that it pops up automatically to remind us that we need to keep on top of this as often as you feel we need to.
Absolutely.
Does that make a little sense? So that, because I know we have a lot of policies and sometimes we drop them. We just drop the review date because we just get overwhelmed. But it would appear to me that this has some pretty significant impacts should we have a data breach. And I think it's good for the policy committee to kind of revisit it and hear from you on a more frequent basis of what's got to happen, because we're so techie, aligned, and everything kind of revolves around that. So that's what the questions I had. Thanks for the clarification.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, folks, any other questions for our IT director?
Nope.
Okay, so we will go ahead and adjourn this particular policy meeting. The next policy meeting will be to determine, and if the chief's in the room, maybe the chief can give our new policy chair some idea of the workload that he will be under in the next year.
Fantastic. All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys. This meeting's adjourned.